Hello, all. This is Football Primetime. We are brought to you by Sam Wu, who's on the other side of the glass. He will not be joining us today. He is way too important for this podcast. But you have me and you got AJ, so it's always good. AJ, obviously, in his beautiful home in New Jersey, and me in my dungeon basement. We are brought to you by Primetime Radio. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. I'll post them in a little bit, and we're rare guys. AJ, football's back. We're officially back. We had a whole week of games, including that Thursday night, which was. I mean, we could go through it if you want, but I mean, from the Thursday night with domination of the Buffalo Bills over the LA Rams, and then you get all the way to Sunday night where, you're expecting a really good game between Tampa and the Dallas Cowboys, and the Cowboys. Mike McCarthy needs to be fired, first of all, but the Cowboys lay an egg, and then Dak goes to basically he breaks his finger, just. It looked like he almost high-fived the Tampa Bay, defensive lineman, and he thought he jammed it at first. He breaks it, and then you go into Monday, and sorry, Sam Wu, but Denver Broncos lay a complete egg. I mean, Geno Smith. Everyone's like, "Oh, Geno, good for you." Geno wasn't very good. It's just that Denver just couldn't get anything going.
Two goal line fumbles killed them.
Yeah. I mean, Javonte Williams. First of all, Javonte Williams is awesome, 11 catches. But that fumble was critical and really hurt them at the 1 yard line. And, all the way back to the end of the game where, Hackett can't call a timeout. And neither could really Russell. And you figured Russell would have this big game, and he was kind of, he had 340 yards, but it was almost mediocre. How those 340 was it just you have all these weapons and you're using tight ends and you're not going after Judy and Sutton, and it was football, and I'm so happy it's back, and it makes you crazy as a fan.
Mm-hmm.
But then you go all the way to fantasy aspects and betting, and like I said, we screw the pooch with Sam on his two teams.
I'm with you, Sam. We gave you some bad picks, but
we didn't really give him bad picks. Yeah, I mean, but that's funny. We didn't really give you bad picks. Everybody was agreeing that Denver was the big choice, and Sam goes all good because he's he's working. But Denver with the pick, and then San Fran, who is Lambeau? Is Soldier Field the worst field in all of existence in all of sports? They can never, ever get their field looking good or playing well. Guys get hurt on it. It was a monster. I know rain, monsoon, but that field, I mean, and forget it. The rest of the season now, you go to Soldier Field in Chicago, and something bad's going to happen because it's already screwed for the entire year.
Yeah, I will say, though, probably the worst field, though, is down in Washington, D.C., right, or Maryland with the Commanders. That's probably the worst field. But that's bad. Awful.
I mean, it was funny, and you just look at the thing, and the guy doing the slip and slide all the way down the field was awesome. And it just makes you feel like it's football in the air. Just like the same thing with cold weather games or snow games, and the guys are doing snow angels, and you get that entire just encompassing football, and you're so happy. And I was driving in the car, following all the games. On Sunday from the radio and through, my wife in the back seat. But, we get back and you see the Sunday game and you unfortunately see this terrible, showing by the Dallas Cowboys. And I guess, maybe we'll start there. So obviously Dak, he's out for 8 weeks, and this completely ruins their season.
Yep.
Mike McCarthy has to be the biggest dum-dum in all of football. He can never seem to get from his play calling to giving, to taking it almost. He dumbed down their offense so much, and it's just it's so easy to tell what they're going to do. It's run, pass, and they just can't get the ball into CeeDee Lamb's hands, who's their biggest playmaker. Zeke is obviously, I feel like he's got one foot out the door because he knows he's going to get cut at the end of the season. But just you have guys that have so much talent in Tony Pollard, and to get him and CeeDee Lamb in the game and in space and give them the football, and they get in Dak's way. And I was not the biggest fan of Dak, but I just feel like he's not given the opportunities to really flourish.
I think, I mean, I would agree. I think he's the typical quarterback. He's not your upper echelon quarterback, right?
Nope.
I think from everything that we've seen, he's a great quarterback, but he's not, one of these upper echelon quarterbacks that, we've come to see with Mahomes, I'll say with Josh Allen, Brady, Rodgers, all of them, right?
There's a clear delineage of like the top 5 guys where, exactly who is that guy, and then there's a bunch of just middle tier, not middle tier. They're the upper half of the league, but Dak and Kyler Murray, and I'll even throw Kirk Cousins in there because he continually has. He played great against. We'll talk about it, Green Bay. But he continually, gets the 4,500 yards and the 30-plus touchdowns, but he just withers in the big moments. And I feel like Dak and Kyler and Las Vegas, Derek Carr, they're all in that kind of group of you just don't know what they are. And Kyler's obviously supremely talented over the other 3, but they're in that same range where you just can't trust them, or you just don't know what's going to happen with them.
Yeah, I mean, I think he could be an even better quarterback, right? In, I guess, a better system. I mean, that's all you can say, right? Or just better coaching. Just giving him the tools, right? I mean, you have CeeDee Lamb for him. You have Dalton Schultz, who's been a very good tight end. These past couple of years. Like you said, you have Ezekiel Elliott, you have Tony Pollard. Two guys that are, I kind of like equate to potentially being like thunder and lightning, right, from the Giants, right? With you have that bruiser and Elliott that's just gonna run downfield, and you have Pollard, who's that change of pace guy that has proven last year how well a second string running back he can be for that team, and good change of pace back guy. So I mean, it's funny too. Like, I feel like last year, like, we really saw Mike McCarthy as kind of the coach that he was. I don't know if it's just because of Rodgers, and all the talent that he had with him, that like some of the, I'll say, dumb tendencies didn't just pop up. But I don't know. I mean, I thought that game was a stinker, honestly.
It sucked.
I mean, I thought Tampa Bay wasn't that good either.
I was just going to get into that. Yep.
Fournette, I thought, looked amazing. I'm kind of regretting that we didn't keep him in our little joint fantasy team league that we have. But and then Julio Jones,
I'm pretty sure we can't complain.
Well, yes, we'll get to the keeper that we kept. But I thought Julio Jones, for I thought he looked pretty well, with the 3 catches, even running the ball a little bit here with the sweeps I think they had. I thought those 2 guys looked great. Godwin, I thought, looked pretty well too, up until he got injured, which is, stinks. Looks like he might be out a couple weeks with the hamstring injury. But they had like flashes, I feel like, but I don't know if it was just a stinker of a game. It was not exciting at all. And I think after halftime, I was like, all right, this game's, I feel like, already over.
So I thought Brady looked like he hadn't played in a while, and all the thing about him missing 11 days in training camp, and him just barely playing any games. I felt like he didn't have the rhythm, and then he's going to go next week to see his favorites, or the Tampa Bay favorites in the New Orleans Saints, who always have their number, and you can damn well bet that Marcus Lattimore is going to be all over Mike Evans. Excuse me. But you look at the team, and the defense was there, and holding man, why am I blanking? Holding Dallas to 3 points was amazing. and then
Yeah.
you could go back and see that Brady, he's the first 45-year-old starting quarterback in NFL history. But he kind of looked like he's 45, and
Yeah.
maybe this is the year that he slowly starts to dwindle.
Really.
He only had 200 yards passing and the one touchdown, the interception. He got sacked twice, and Dallas defense did a very good job. They held him in it, and very admirable because they've had some injuries issues themselves. But Zeke was okay on the other side, but like you said, Leonard Fournette was just an absolute beast.
Yep.
Evans with the touchdown, and he's always going to get his, and he's that good. But Julio, you mentioned, looked really good. Russell Gage was a free agent addition. He didn't really do too much. Devin White might be.
Yeah.
He's an extremely underrated player, and I know he had 2 sacks in the game. He was all over Dak Prescott. But Leighton Vander Esch, good for him coming back. I know he had 9 tackles, and it's good to see him around because I've always liked him as a player. But he's just had his own injury history, and yeah, I mean, I guess the big thing is that Dallas is done. They can't. I can't see a way that Cooper Rush leads them to the playoffs because by the time Dak comes back in Week 9 or after their bye, he's just not going to have enough games to make up a hole that's about to happen because they're going to, in their division alone, the Giants are looking rather feisty. Washington has a decent. Well, I mean, we'll talk about Washington too, but Carson Wentz, if he's playing like this, they're a contender for the division. And then the Eagles, I know they had a really close game against the Detroit Lions, but their offense looks really good. And that's with a game where I didn't think, Hurts played all that well. Let's talk about this right now, this one. The Eagles go in and they're facing a Detroit team that, other than Hard Knocks where, maybe you think they're going to be something decent, let's put it this way. Detroit Lions stink. And, what exactly do they cut? They do. They get behind a little bit. The Eagles, go up a little bit on the Lions. The Lions actually make a comeback, which is, it was interesting. They put the 14 points on the fourth quarter, but Jalen Hurts was too much, especially I think he ran for 90-something yards. He was an extremely effective player for them. He has the touchdown. He didn't make any big mistakes. Jared Goff, on the other hand, in crunch time, he came back, had the 2 touchdowns. DeAndre Swift is an absolute beast. He had the 50-yard rush and
144 yards.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
this guy is going to be a number top 3 running back this year.
Yeah, I mean, he's an animal. I thought Amon-Ra St. Brown looked pretty good too.
Mm-hmm.
With the touchdown, the 8 receptions. I thought those 2 guys looked pretty good. Obviously, Swift looked amazing. Yeah, I mean, it was cool seeing what's his name, the D end Hutchinson, play. You didn't make really an impact, but it's still kind of cool to see those guys. Tracy Walker, I thought played a pretty good game, right, with the sack and the fumble. I think that, the Lions, like we said last show, right, is just a team it's going to be feisty, but still should be the bottom of the barrel, right, with in that NFC North division. But I mean, the Eagles, AJ Brown, that looks like an amazing trade right now.
Yep.
The 10 receptions, 155 yards. I mean, the dude was a beast. I'm surprised he didn't find the end zone. But I mean, he was amazing and good for Miles Sanders, right? Finally finding the end zone.
Yeah.
After what, a
Bounce back.
full year, full 2 years, I think, without
Mm-hmm.
a touchdown because of the injuries and stuff like that. And I thought he looked really well. And even their other backups, right? With Gainwell, I think we both think that he's going to be potentially a dark horse to steal that job from Sanders if he doesn't keep producing. But I thought he played well too with the limited roles that he had. But yeah, it's gonna be tough for the Cowboys. The next couple of games, right? I was just looking at kind of their schedule down the line, and games that I would say they might have a chance of winning, right? Would be the Bears potentially. They're not going to win against the Packers, I don't think. Same thing with the Vikings. I think those are 2 good teams. maybe they have a chance against the Giants, but if the Giants play the way they did last week, this past week, I think the Giants could take that. So Dallas
Yeah.
is going to be in a hole.
So obviously Dan Campbell and the Detroit Lions, I was impressed with them coming back. You felt at first that it's 24-14. Philly then in the third gains another, adds another 14 points, and you think, all right, they're starting to go away. Detroit comes back, so good job on Dan Campbell and leading that staff, and all throughout the preseason and watching Hard Knocks and stuff. I thought maybe this is something that it's not going to live. It's going to be short run. His kind of, gun ho, and it's nice compared to some of these other coaches. I do agree with that, but it's just how much can your coach be or want to be your best friend, and I feel like that's how he wants to be with every player. He wants to be their bud, and as a coach, not at a professional level, obviously, but as a former coach. I can't see that is anywhere conducive to winning in a long-term relationship. But we'll see what happens with Dan Campbell. Talking about the Commanders, you had a very impressive win. I know it's the Jaguars, but they get it early. They stave off with Jaguars come back in the third and fourth. But Carson Wentz was the big story. 4 touchdowns, 2 to Jahan Dotson, the rookie. 2 to Jahan Dotson, the rookie. You had 1 for Scary Terry. Antonio Gibson was really involved in the passing game, which is what everybody thought last year was going to happen. Yeah. So he's kind of made a name for himself in the first game of the season. We'll see how he goes, especially after Robinson was, unfortunately, his axe, getting shot. That kind of led to Gibson's ability to come in and be the workhorse. Trevor Lawrence, on the other hand, he's another guy that's for me, I mean, I know it's young in his career, but he's another guy in that Kyler Murray, Dak Prescott, where he's so talented, but there's just multiple plays during a game where he looks like he is just dumbfounded. It's almost like a Baker Mayfield effect where you just see him do some things. You're like, what the heck are you looking at? And, he's got the talent. I like Christian Kirk. He was a really good ad. I didn't think that was going to be I don't think he's a true number one, but I just need to see more from the former number 1 overall pick.
Yeah. Also with Lawrence, I kind of, obviously I know he had last year, right? Under Urban, but I feel like this is still kind of his rookie season in that sense, right? Of actually getting tutelage, from, I will say, a more competent head coach, and staff. So I kind of chalk up some of those dumb plays to when Darnold was with the Jets and Adam Gase, right? With when you're getting some of that coaching, right? They're not really getting everything from the game. I did like Kirk. I thought he would be a good addition just because of the amount of money that they sunk into him. So they gotta force feed him throws and make him work. I was impressed with Etienne coming back too, and kind of the limited carries that he had. I thought he looked pretty decent, especially with that longer run that he had of around 20 yards, 30 yards, something like that. I think that's somebody that they need to get him more involved in the passing game.
Props to James Robinson coming back.
Yeah. I mean, I thought he looked good too.
Yep.
I think the Jaguars are kind of in a better position than the Lions, right? But I kind of compare them, the same, where the Jags are still young and they're still growing, and they got a lot of raw talent. They just need some more pieces, and I was surprised. I actually thought that the Jaguars would win this game. I don't have faith in Carson Wentz, but I thought he had a pretty decent game, right? With the 4 touchdowns. Obviously, had 2 picks, but I was impressed with Dotson and the way he played, and obviously, I'm always impressed with McLaurin. So it'll be interesting to see kind of where Washington might land in the NFC East division.
Yeah, and on defense for the Jags, Trayvon Walker, the sack, but I was really impressed with Devin Lloyd. He was all over the place, and he's and Doug Peterson even said it afterwards. He's freakishly athletic, and he can move extremely fast, covers well, and was a tackling machine. And they can only be happy that they have three stalwarts, because you also forget that they have Josh Allen, the defensive end on the that team. Let's talk about the Bears. A pretty impressive win against the 49ers team where they were 7-point underdogs. Fields with the 2 touchdowns, only 120 passing yards. And you say all this right with the fact that it was a monsoon. I mean, it was raining the entire day. It was not conducive to passing. Montgomery had 17 rushes, but only 26 yards. Fields was okay with his legs. Khalil Herbert with a touchdown. Dante Pettis had that one catch for the 51 yards, and that's when he started doing the slide. Equanimeous St. Brown, another St. Brown that gets a touchdown. He's with Chicago now. On the other side, Trey Lance, running the ball, 13 carries, 54 yards, but passing, he was under 50%. Only 160 yards. He had a bad interception, and he had a lot of play going into this season. And people think he used to be a dark horse to break out. I think he'll still do pretty good, but that's got to scare you if you're a San Fran fan, and especially if you're Kyle Shanahan. There's not much of a leash between him and Jimmy Garoppolo, and I can hear that banter getting louder and louder.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, right? If he doesn't start producing, obviously it's still early in the season. They're going to give him something. Because this is the guy, right, that they traded picks for, to land him.
Yeah.
And you're as a Shanahan, right? You have to give him, games to play, and you have to start him because he's your make or break. It's sad to see that Elijah Mitchell got injured. I think he's out a couple of weeks. It's
I think he's out. But isn't he out even longer than that? Isn't he supposed to be out for no, not a season, but I thought it was 8 weeks. It's something. It's not good.
Yeah, I think it was half this. I think it's half the season.
But here's the question: do you really need a running back when you have Deebo Samuel, 8 carries, 52 yards, the touchdown, that 27-yard, behemoth run he had? Trey Lance with another 54 yards. You almost don't need a running back. I know Jeff Wilson's going to be the starter now, but which is funny because Elijah Mitchell had 41 yards on 6 carries before he got hurt.
Yeah, I mean that system just I don't know how
churns out running backs.
It's amazing.
Yep.
So yeah, in that sense, right? You don't need a stud running back, right? But at the same time, it's I feel like you don't want to use Deebo and Ayuk as your running backs, all the time with those running plays where what Deebo was last year, because then you're taking away the passing game as much. And I think for somebody like that team that is so big on the run, that play action is huge. And if you're having Deebo line up as the H-back or kind of those decoy plays, right, where it looks like he might get the ball as a running play, I think that just kind of hurts you more, because I think he's more of a downfield threat than more of a rusher. But maybe that's just my opinion.
Yep. All right. We'll talk about the Bills Rams game, because I don't think we had obviously discussed that last week, because we did their show on Tuesday, right?
Yep.
So Josh Allen comes out, and you could see to start the game, there was how many turnovers to start the game? It was 3 in a row. Where it was a Josh Allen interception, then a fumble, and then Stafford had to pick himself. And you're like, wow, these two teams, they just, it's 10-10, I think, going into half.
Yep.
You were waiting for a team to take over, and Gabe Davis with that beautiful touchdown where I don't know where any defense on the LA Rams was. But you come back, Cooper Kupp with the 4-yard touchdown, and Cooper Kupp is just
amazing.
It's amazing. You talk, and little side tangent, right? So there are all these ridiculous, and not so much fantasy, just in general, right? You think about the top wide receivers. It's Deebo Samuel. It's Justin
Mm-hmm.
Jefferson. It's Jamar Chase. It's Cooper Kupp. It's um, Stephon Diggs, right? All these guys produced in week one. All of them were
Yeah.
extremely talented, are
Yep.
extremely talented. All of them were ridiculous. And I feel like, and it's been changing for a little while in terms of pass catching, and it's more of
Mm-hmm.
a receivers league, but it's even more so the fact that it's receivers take over the game, and you have these guys that just have monstrous numbers. We'll talk about Justin Jefferson, but 188 something yards, which is his most ever, and the total amount of catches. And you see guys like
Yeah.
Cooper Kupp with 14 catches in a game, and it's awesome to see. And these guys are slinging it around. He had 128 yards, Cooper Kupp, on 13 catches. Sorry, and Matt Stafford threw for 240. He had over half of his yards.
Yeah. I mean, it's insane too because obviously these defenses prepare for these guys, yet they still find ways
No.
to be open, to snatch balls. I mean, I don't know how many slants I saw, Cup, catch, which obviously that's, the bread and butter of him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those slants. And it's amazing like how open these guys can get or just the grabs that they can make. Yeah, I mean, him and Diggs on Thursday night were spectacular. Obviously, I thought
Yeah.
Allen looked really good. I didn't think any of those interceptions were really his
At the end
fault.
of
I
the
think
game.
one was a yeah. But I thought even like so the interceptions, right? I think one was a tip
Yeah.
ball, and I think another one was actually off of Davis's hands or
Gabe
whatever, and
Davis.
then
Yeah.
it went right to the linebacker or the D back
Yeah.
covering him. So I didn't think any of those interceptions were his fault. I think just one of those things. I thought overall he had a really obviously impressive game with almost hitting 300 yards. I think two of the big
The big thing was the
takeaways.
rushing.
Yeah, well, yeah. The 56 yards, touchdown. But I thought two of the big things from this game were the fact that Cam Akers, right, only had 3 rushing attempts.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't used at
Yeah.
all. And then Allen Robinson, you thought that him being in this offense, he would shine, across from Cooper Kupp, he'd be that second weapon. And I think he was targeted like 2 or 3 times,
2
which
targets.
was just crazy
Yeah.
to me. Yeah, so it's crazy to me
Yeah.
that two guys that McVay, I feel like was hyping up in the
Expecting things.
preseason, stuff like that. That Akers, yeah, you think that Akers would be the guy to lead it, and it was Henderson. And then even actually the rookie before he got hurt, I think he was in that first drive, which was crazy to me.
Wow.
But we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah. Um, we talked about Stephon Diggs, obviously very good. Gabe Davis, the 4 for 88, the touchdown. Uh, getting to just defensively, Jalen Ramsey with all the talk about, Josh Allen's trash and all this stuff, and Josh Allen went
Mm-hmm.
right after him, and there were multiple times
Yep.
that he got torched, and it just goes to show you, like, if you're going to talk in this league, you better back it up because these guys, they, guys. NFL players and mostly coaches do a great job of saying, "Oh, hey, we don't care about the banter and the noise and all this stuff." They hear it and they see it, and they're absolutely going to come after you if you're
Yep.
an idiot. And Jalen Ramsey is just one of those guys that just can't shut up. He had 6 tackles, but he was just torched multiple times between Gabe Davis or Stephon Diggs. Even I saw him get destroyed by Isaiah McKenzie, on that touchdown. It's amazing how guys just can't shut their traps, and you see what happens when you don't when you can't back it up.
Yeah.
You're gonna see it on the other side.
It was funny watching after Diggs scored that touchdown on him, just him going right up to him and just jawing at him. And I
Yeah.
think Allen ran up right next to him too. So it was funny. And also just
Yep.
on Buffalo, right, with Von Miller, his first game, against
Oh yeah.
LA, having the 2 sacks, the 3 forced fumbles. I mean, he was an animal. And obviously Aaron Donald, was too with the sack and forced fumble. So yeah, it's I think losing Von Miller might hurt this defense more than they thought.
Yeah. Um, yeah, Von Miller, the 2 sacks. We talked about. Actually, we didn't talk about Pittsburgh. So Pittsburgh Steelers. Final, they win in OT. Crazy with hitting the uprights on the kick by the Steelers. They almost win. Um, Bengals though, and the big story was about how they expected the defensive line to, or sorry, the offensive line for Cincinnati Bengals to do
Yeah.
well. They paid all these guys in the offseason, and they come out and lay a huge egg, 7 sacks on a guy that last year got beat up terribly. And you could
Yep.
see that Burrow was still, having the effects, physically wise from the appendectomy. He lost like 20 pounds. And then he's just getting it just destroyed by, Highsmith who had 2 sacks. TJ Watt had the sack. He had the interception. He had 3 tackles for a loss before tearing his pec. And, it sounds like, did I see that TJ Watt is going to miss the whole season? Or did they say he's not going to require surgery? I cannot remember what I saw about that.
I'm pretty sure that's one of those where he's pretty much done for the season.
Well, if he doesn't, I thought it was something that if he doesn't require surgery, he could miss like 6 weeks, and he was looking for a second opinion. I just didn't see if it was officially. Watt doesn't need surgery. He's out 6 weeks. Okay, so he will be back, which is good because he's, Aaron Donald's the best player in football. In football total, I think it's Aaron Donald still, but TJ Watt is just right there with guys like Justin Jefferson and then all these other guys. But he was ridiculous. Highsmith was very good on the other side for them.
So cool little fun fact, real quick, about TJ Watt. So he actually was. So Trayvon Walker, just to go back to the Jaguars real quick, right? Mm-hmm. Walker had a sack and interception, and in his first, NFL debut, TJ Watt also, in his first NFL debut, had a sack and interception, and obviously this game too, he did before he was, sidelined with the pec injury. So that was a little cool snippet of history there.
Joe Burrow, 330. On 53 attempts, he was trying to get the ball out quickly and get to his receivers, especially Jamar Chase, 10 for 129, the touchdown. Unfortunately, he had T. Higgins get hurt with a concussion. Burrow had the 2 touchdowns. He had the 4 interceptions. But like I said, you could see that he was, through all that, through the beating he was taking and him being, up until the start of the season with the appendectomy and all this stuff, he's still he's impressed me, right? He's the number 1 overall pick 3 years ago. He's had a little bit of an injury history, but he just is a gamer, and you can see that, and it's so much fun to watch. And Cincinnati Bengals fans have to be so happy, and let alone the Super Bowl appearance last year, but you have to be so happy that you have this guy as your quarterback for the next 10 years because he is awesome. Mitch, on the other hand, did very well. He's going to save off, Pickett for at least another week. Claypool was the leading rusher at 36 yards. They couldn't get the ground game going. Harris gets hurt. He obviously had the Lisfranc injury to the beginning of the season, in training camp and before that, but he kind of tweaked his ankle, it looked like. Freiermuth, pretty good game for the big tight end. He was Trubisky's favorite target. They couldn't get guys going. I know Deontay Johnson had 7 catches, but just 55 yards. They couldn't seem to get going, but they get the win, right? And they have a very good kicker in Boswell, and that defense can just take over games. Minka Fitzpatrick, 14 tackles. Miles Jack comes in from the Jaguars, and is one of the better linebackers. It's amazing. This defense is so ridiculously good and deep for Mollett and Casey Hayward. It's just they're a threat as long as they can get good quarterback play.
Yeah, I was kind of rooting for the tie at the end. Just I always think ties are funny in the NFL, but McPherson,
speaking of, right,
with his heroics last year, right, and yeah. But yeah, McPherson with the extra point miss, and obviously the miss field goal in overtime, or blocked field goal in overtime. But yeah, Colts Texans. You want to get to it?
Yeah. Matt Ryan was very slow out of the gate. He hit 350 yards, but in that first half, it was terrible. You could see that, Indy was just trying to get underneath them, and they come back, get 17 points in the fourth, and they just can't beat the Houston Texans, who I'll give some credit. Davis Mills looked very good. Rex Burkhead kind of came out of nowhere, although I don't know what they were doing. Pierce should be the lead runner, and he should be getting the football, especially as the running backs. Brandon Cooks, was a very good number one receiver for Mills. He looks to target him. O.J. Howard comes out of nowhere as the tight end gets 2 touchdowns, and it's not going to happen very often. On defense, Grugier Hill, 18 total tackles, 14 solo. He was all over the field.
Insane.
I was impressed with Houston, and Indy is chalk, right? They're Michael Pittman as a wide receiver. They're Jonathan Taylor as running back, and then nothing else. And that's a little scary.
Yeah, it was. I mean, Jonathan Taylor is a monster. 31 carries, 161 yards, the touchdown. He was insane. Pittman, on the other side, right, with the 9 receptions, 121 yards. I mean, it was insane. Those two guys, I think turnovers hurt them. This game, I think everybody expected them to blow Houston out of the water. 5 fumbles, I think it was.
Yep.
A couple of fumbles, and then just obviously the interception too. Like, you can't have as many turnovers or, just dropping the ball like that. That's going to kill you. And I mean, they might look back at this at the end of the year, right? If they're staring at a playoff spot and, being like, that's a game we should have won. Yeah, I mean, I was impressed with Mills. Like you said, kind of a head scratcher, right? With Pierce not really playing as being the lead rusher, I should say, as much, but maybe they're just trying to give it to the veteran right now and have Pierce learn a little bit. I mean, who knows? But yeah, I mean, it was impressive job by Houston, and it's funny, every team in the AFC South went winless this week, so it's funny.
Yeah. All right, a couple one-hitters before we get to the locals, and obviously you can tell that I saved the Jets for last because that's just how it rolls. I always usually rip in the Jets right away, and it brings my mood down for the show, but I figured football's back. I should be happy to start, and then I'll make myself miserable afterwards. Saints beat the Falcons, and Jameis's return to action from injury after the knee blowout. I just thought they could have got Kamara a little more involved, and for the Falcons, you target Kyle Pitts 9 times. He only has 2 receptions. That he needs to get the ball, and I don't know how to get it to him, but he's a playmaker just like Drake London, and got to keep force feeding him the ball. We talked about the Eagles. The Browns get the win in Baker Mayfield's return. Panthers just look lifeless. Same thing. How do you not give the ball to Christian McCaffrey is beyond me, but it is what it is.
Patriots Dolphins.
Dolphins looked pretty impressive in the McDaniel era. 7 points. They had the 1 touchdown in the third quarter. Mac Jones looked terrible.
That entire offense, I thought, looked terrible.
Bill's losing it. You have to have a true offensive coordinator, because clearly Patricia and Joe Judge, 2 defensive guys. I know Joe Judge was kind of worked with tight ends for a little bit. They stink. And I don't care that Matt Patricia's some rocket scientist that he's going to try to draw up some good plays. It's a joke. And losing McDaniels obviously hurt this offense very big. They have to have a guy in there that knows what he's doing, and I feel like this is going to be the downfall of the Patriots this year, is that they're just not giving their young quarterback someone to really trust and to grow with. Tyreek Hill was all over the place, leading the team in the catches. Waddle with the touchdown, where you have grown men in the stands doing the waddle. So very, very impressive. Yep. All right. Not more one hitters, but Vikings handing the Packers a massive beatdown.
Yeah.
We talked about Justin Jefferson. There's not much more you can say about this guy. I think he's the best wide receiver in the league, and he kind of proved that. 2 touchdowns. Cousins looked very good, was smart with the football. Cook with a solid running game. Thielen was involved a little bit, but it was pretty much the Jefferson show. Hicks with a massive game with 14 tackles. On the other side, Aaron Jones hates his wide receivers.
Rodgers.
Sorry. Aaron Rodgers hates his wide receivers. Aaron Jones, somewhat decent game. 3 catches, but he also had another 50 yards on the rushing. A.J. Dillon was all over the place. 2 touchdowns. 1 touchdown, and then a pretty good passing game. He was their leading receiver. For the wide receivers, Dobbs was the highest at 37 yards. They missed obviously Alan Lazard and Christian Watson with a terrible drop. This guy,
I think that was so early in the game, but that was like a little bit
crucial.
of a little bit of a backbreaker, right? Because I think Minnesota was already up. That was the tie of the game. It might be a little tough sledding, honestly, the next couple of weeks for, unfortunately, the Packers. I mean, until somebody can be trusted, it's like, I guess you maybe lean on the other rookie in Dobbs, right? With just kind of what he did, but I mean, I think you got to kind of take a page out of what San Francisco is doing, right? With their running game and kind of model that and try to go from there. That's all I can think of.
Aaron Rodgers, and we'll talk about it right now, but he loses Devontae Adams, who then goes to the Raiders and has 141 yards, and he has more yards, just Devontae Adams himself, than all the Packers wide receivers combined. Wide receivers, not counting the running backs. I mean, that's embarrassing, and obviously Rodgers is unhappy. Derek Carr's very happy. He throws 3 picks, so he lives in la-la land, but he has the 2 touchdowns, 1 to Devontae Adams, who he has obviously the rapport with. On the other side, Justin Herbert, and I said it, they're my Super Bowl pick, and he looked just as effective. 3 touchdowns. Austin Eckler didn't have the greatest game as a running back, but he was dishing the ball over between Everett and Carter for touchdowns. He had Horvath gets a touchdown. Keenan Allen gets hurt. Mike Williams was pretty much invisible for a little bit. Yeah. But these guys, when they come back, obviously Keenan Allen's going to miss the Thursday night game. It sounds like Williams is going to have a big game. But they have guys like, Josh Palmer, who they expect good things at the number 3 wide receiver. They have Carter. And we'll see how this offense goes. But when you have a quarterback like Justin Herbert, it makes everything easy.
A guy that we didn't talk about, right, in that upper echelon, but he's a guy that's, I think, right there.
Yeah. No, Herbert, I think, is a top 5 quarterback. I think maybe even top 3. In that game, though, we didn't talk about him. Khalil Mack, 3 just having some 3 sacks. He had a fantastic game. I have the hiccups, man. He was awesome for them, and that defense is scary. They have enough talent where, you look around the field between Derwin James and Khalil Mack and, Kenneth Murray Jr., who's a very solid running back, Asante Samuel Jr. at the corner spot, Joey Bosa on the line, and had a sack and a half. They bring in guys like Kyle Van Noy and some other guys that, can make plays. This defense, it really does impress me, and I think they're going to be, one of the tops by the end of the year. That to go along with the number, a top quarterback and running back wide receiver tandems, and you're looking for some pretty impressive. You're looking at some pretty impressive teams. So, lastly, and I kind of did save them for last because I feel like we didn't talk about them as much in the preseason, mainly because they lose Tyreek Hill, and Mahomes. We'll see what he has to do on his own. The guy comes out and throws 5 damn touchdowns, and I sent you that stat. So, and I'm going to the so I can get exactly the way it was. But Mahomes joins Drew Brees, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Dan Marino, and this is the one name that's kind of but Big Ben Roethlisberger as quarterbacks to throw 5 TDs in 5 different games. So 5 times they've thrown 5 TDs.
It's crazy.
It took Brees, Brady, Manning, Marino, and Big Ben 240 plus games for each of them to hit that mark. Patrick Mahomes did it in 64 games.
Yeah, I mean, that's
mind-blowing. He did it in a quarter of the time that the leading guy did. I don't remember who did it in 240 games, but just crazy. The guy's ridiculous. And, you look at the team he has, and they blew away the Cardinals, and you kind of figured that maybe Murray would show a little bit more. He had the 2 touchdowns, but he gets it to everybody. Kelsey, obviously, the stalwart, 8 for 121, the touchdown. But he throws 2 to Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He has the 1 for Mecole Hardman. He gives it to his fullback, Fortson, for a touchdown. And he's so methodical in taking apart defenses. It's beautiful to watch. It really is.
Yeah, I mean, and also, I think everybody thought, right, that this offense would be struggling, right, without Tyreek Hill, but they, they were all gas. They were, pedal to the metal, didn't let up. I thought Juju looked pretty good too in his debut as a Chief, with around 80 yards. I mean, they were impressive.
Yeah,
a lot more impressive than I thought they would be. I know before I said that they might be the bottom of the barrel in this division, but it's crazy.
I called the Raiders, but maybe it's the Broncos if Russ can't get his head out of his rear. But Pacheco with the rushing touchdown, and he was kind of leading the backs for rushing. But Kyler Murray, was doing some things with his legs. He had 5 carries for 30 yards, but just the passing, 22 for 34, 193, 52 QBR. Greg Dortch was their leading receiver, 63 yards. James Conner, always reliable to get a touchdown. He had another one, and he had some, passing game work, but Arizona needs to step it up, and I'm liking my over-unders for Arizona. I really think they are in trouble because I don't know what's going on with Kyler Murray, and maybe it's the fact that his team didn't trust him, and that whole thing with the the clause in his thing, maybe it's something to do with stupid video games. I don't know, but they just Buda Baker is obviously a beast, and Xavier Collins, Zach Collins, and another one. It was all over the field for them. But I need to see more from a quarterback that another former number 1 overall pick that just can't seem to get his head right. All right, we'll do the Giants, and then we'll finish with the Jets because I just want to continue to brighten my mood. Giants 21-10. Win in Brian Dable's storied
debut.
New York Giants career. He didn't play scared. His team didn't play scared. They came in knowing that they were a big underdog, a team that everyone thinks is going to win 3-4 games, and Dable took his cojones and slapped him on the table with that 2-point conversion on the game-winning touchdown. And, you look at the box score and you would think, all right, they stymied Derrick Henry, and they did, 21 for 82. He's going to get his because that's who he is, but they did pretty well. And then, the other thing was Ryan Tannehill, he had 2 touchdowns, but I felt like he was missing the big throw. He couldn't get his big receivers involved. Burks, 355, but Robert Woods, one catch for 13 yards. Austin Hooper, who they were expecting to come in at tight end and kind of help stabilize them, 1 for 6. The Giants' defense was just all over him from Crowder with that Did you see Crowder's hit on
insane
on Derrick Henry? He just leveled him.
Which is hilarious because
Yeah,
obviously it's usually the other way around.
I mean that's two big gentlemen. I mean, I know Crowder's 6'1", 240. I think Henry's 6'2". What is Henry? 6'2", 6'3", 247. So I mean that's a pretty good feat to knock someone out like that. Daniel Jones, 17 for 21. Obviously not a lot of passes thrown, but he was pretty solid with the two touchdowns. Um, Decent in the running game, but the biggest takeaway here, Saquon Barkley, and is he back? 18 for 164. He had the
I
touchdown. He
hope.
had the 68-yard run. Sterling Shepard, really good to see him back from injury. 71 yards, the touchdown. He had the that bomb, the 65-yard bomb. Barkley was also active in the passing game, and that's the big thing. If they can get their former, number 2 overall pick as a running back to give them these kind of days, and this offensive
Yep.
line, obviously credit to them too. They were, controlling the line of scrimmage, which was big, and same thing with the Giants' defensive line controlling the line of scrimmage. And the Giants, they looked good. And
Yeah.
it's not going to be like this all the time. They're still devoid of a decent amount of talent. I mean, their wide receivers, like we said, I know Sterling Shepard had a good game, but their leading receiver, Kenny Golladay, 2 for 22. They just don't have a lot of talent. And their quarterback play, while Daniel Jones was good, he's not lights out, and that's kind of to be expected.
Yeah.
They're going to have bad games, but these good games where you can mix them in, that makes you, as a Giant fan, feel really good that your coach is, taking that much of an initiative to say, screw it, I'm not going to play for a tie here. I'm going to go for the win, 2-point conversion, take it, and then my defense is going to stop them, and they're going to miss a field goal.
Yeah.
So, really good for them.
Yeah. I mean, I think just a couple takeaways. Obviously, was that little incident right with Dable and Jones right on the sideline where it got a little heated.
Yep.
I think that's something just to note, right? And then obviously, like you mentioned, right, is Barkley, the way he ran on Sunday. I mean, it was extremely impressive. And it's great to see him, come back, especially from the injury riddled seasons that he's had the past 2 years. Um, he's a monster, and it's nice to see him, running the ball and just doing well. So
Yeah. Um. All right. Do you want to start
are we
off
doing it?
with? Yeah. Why don't you just start off, and then I'll come in with the punch.
Yeah, I mean, so I thought the Jet defense, I thought actually played pretty well for a lot of the game, right? I thought, we were in it for at least 2 quarters, right? That first half, I thought we played really well defensively. I mean, Sauce Gardner, I thought was, impressive
Yeah.
for shutting down, Mark Andrews. Um,
You did really well
you
on
know, I,
Andrews.
I thought there were a lot of good things that the defense showed, right? With
Yep.
the 2 sacks that they had on Lamar, keeping him actually, you know his yardage down rushing wise, right? He only had 17 yards. I think that's pretty impressive, for a guy that is so mobile and usually is just burning teams right with his legs. So I was impressed with the defense. We turn to the offense. That was something else that was just hot garbage, right? I don't know what I was expecting with Joe Flacco. Um,
I don't know why you
it
expected anything.
well, maybe I just expected more out of the potential of what we have on offense, right? With some of our wide receivers, and our running backs, right? I thought the backs were okay. I wanted to see a little bit more of
Yeah,
Brees
Michael Carter
Hall.
was good.
I would have liked to see a little bit more Brees Hall.
Yep.
Let him run the ball a little bit more. But like I said, yeah, Carter was good. Um, I mean, the wide receivers all had decent games, but it it just shows you that we need a quarterback. Like we have weapons, right? That we can
Hmm.
use. In our wideouts, in our running backs, our offensive line, I didn't think played the greatest. With the 3 sacks that they let up on, for Flacco. Um, but it, if we had any sort of competent quarterback, I think this team would be like honestly like, a potential to be what the what the Bengals were last year. Some kind of dark horse, right, where they could make a run. Just get on a hot streak. But we have Joe Flacco at the helm for right now. I'm hoping Zach returns, as soon as possible. But yeah, it's frustrating because you see what the team could be. And when you have this defense play as well as it did, I thought, for the majority of the game, it's kind of like a wasted opportunity. So.
Yep. All right. I don't know what the hell the coach is talking about. He, as of now, Joe Flacco is still our quarterback. He thinks he could be a starter. He has all the faith in the world in Joe Flacco, and I have no faith in Robert Saleh. Look at, yeah, he wants to go in for the, yep. Listen, if this is going to be the end, Robert Saleh needs to get his head out of his, rear, and he needs to see that this quarterback needs to be removed from the starting position. Give me Mike White, give me Chris Streveler, give me anybody. I'll take a wide receiver at quarterback right now. He was terrible. It took him 60 passes to get 300 yards. You got to be shitting me. And, running backs weren't an issue. Michael Carter was good. Wide receivers were decent. He's got to get. They had like 5 air yards per throw. So I'm done with it. And Sam, if we're really done, you can hit it. It's miserable, and it's great to be the Jets. And this is Football Primetime. We'll see you next week.